This is the Black Pages, and today's excerpt comes from The Negro in the Making of America by Benjamin Quarles. Equally as important, the war brought about a separation of white and Negro churches in the South. The theories of race held by most white Southerners, which had led them to establish Jim Crow practices in secular life, made it next to impossible for them to welcome Negroes into their church congregations. And the relatively small percentage of whites who were not adverse to retaining their Negro membership were willing to do so only on condition that such members would continue to sit in the galleries formerly reserved for slaves and would not expect to take part in the church's social or business affairs. Negroes were unwilling to accept such stipulations. As a consequence, Southern Protestantism divided into all white and all Negro denominations. Every war starting from the Civil War has allowed for certain stipulations to be gained by black people in America. It changed the mentality of black America. As we gained more, we accepted less in the sense of poor treatment or being treated as a second-class citizen in a place of worship in the eyes of the God that views all humans as equal, despite the sentiments of the white Southerners or people who viewed black people as lesser than. If black people were allowed to even be in the church, it was in the sense of segregation, having to be separated from white people. Now that we had sacrificed our lives in order to go to war on behalf of a country that viewed us as lesser than, things had to change. It seems apparent that white people were trying to maintain Jim Crow laws within their secular life or their day-to-day lives. But in their spiritual life, the church life, black people were no longer willing to allow for Jim Crow laws to permeate the walls of the churches and pulpits that they would use to gain their salvation. As black people were able to have their own church congregations and preach the word of the gospel in a safe space that allowed for black people not to be treated as inferior, the black church began to thrive. It seems very contradictory to think that wars has been of any benefit to black people, but it's a common narrative within history that is not something that is actually talked about or illuminated. Wars have been of a great benefit to black people and of a great loss, as we've lost countless black people who could have contributed to society in various ways. We've lost those people in wars, but because of that sacrifice, we were able to gain something. We were able to use that as a leveraging tool in order to gain more rights here in American society. The black church was created because of war. The belief that if we are willing to sacrifice our lives on behalf of this country, we deserve the ability to be able to preach and to be able to exist in a place in the eyes of God where we are equal, where we can bring in our African roots and utilize our rhythm and dance and music to create a truly transcendental experience in a place that is supposed to be safe and is supposed to help us thrive and overcome the hardships and the transgressions that we face within society. This shows that life is never truly black and white, that there's a lot of gray area, and that the contradictions of existence are unavoidable